All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conservatish episode 77. My name is Peter Feliciano. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/conservatish. You can find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. And you can, that's FELICIANO. And what else? New episodes out every Monday and Thursday because sometimes people are a little confused about that. But that's the deal. I'm the hardest working motherfucker in the world. Besides the Prudent Patriot. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today, the Prudent Patriot. I was driving up here and I was like, this episode's gonna, I can guarantee this one's gonna piss some motherfuckers off.
I mean, it definitely can. I have no problem being honest. I'm willing to talk about whatever. I'm just kind of, I'm over it. I'm not worried about it. You know what I'm saying? I'm down to be honest.
No, I can tell that. Things. I've watched a number of your videos, and I'm like, this guy's in people's faces. God bless him, man.
Yeah. I was thinking
put the mic up a little.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, what type of topics would you like to discuss first?
Well, I'm open to whatever, but I've seen a lot of abortion stuff recently. There's been a lot of the new stuff in the. Well, actually, firstly, I was thinking that I wanted to first just give you a kudos. Number one, you're friends with Jared.
Yes.
Yes. Good man.
Very good.
Good man.
Appreciate him.
I don't know if you wanted to talk about it, but when all that stuff kind of started to go down with Jared, was it last year? I think around the Proud Boys, then. He said that you were one of the people who like kind of had his back and like kind of went through that. If you're down to talk about what happened,
no,
I think that'd be interesting.
That's 100% the truth. I think Jared had my back more in the beginning than I had of his. I didn't really understand how good of a friend Jared truly was. True patriot, true person, just true all around good person. Had my back when there were people talking bad about me in areas that I wasn't there to defend myself. So I was able to have someone defend me for who I was because he'd met my family, he interacted with me, so he knew who I was. So when there were people talking bad about me, he was able to defend me. And it wasn't me having to do it. It was somebody else. And it was someone who really wasn't seen with me. There weren't really lots of photos with us. It was kind of like we'd just done some Patriot stuff together.
Right.
And then he'd come over and we'd met each other a little bit more intimate. Like he came and met my wife and my kids. And then things kind of started to go sour in the movement. And he was the only one that really had my back. And I was really appreciative of that. I mean, I can't even tell him like how important that was for him to have my back in that situation.
Yeah, he's a really nice dude.
Yeah.
And a good musician too. Have you heard any of his music?
I have.
Yeah, he's
Soft.
Yeah, AYNSOPH.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to fucking say it. That's I just like your music, Jared. I don't fucking know how to aim soft. It sounds like
okay.
Sounds like a video game or some shit. So what happened with all that? So you were formerly in the Proud Boys. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still affiliated with the guys. I run with an SOJ group, the State of Jefferson. I mean, I'm not out there going die hard in the paint because it's just not with it anymore. It's a good group of guys to have your back. You know what I'm saying? I didn't give up on the premise because the idea is really a good thing. I mean, I haven't completely given up on the idea of the West is the best. I do like that idea. It just needs to be actually implemented. And until there's a public showing of people doing what they claim, it's kind of something you get. I mean, when I say that I'm going to do something, I feel like being a quitter. You know, I was never thrown out. I was never disavowed. I was cheated, and I was brought in by other brothers. So, I mean, there are some things that Jared stepped down, which is I respect him. And the group that brought me in were the only people that defended me in the area. Like, they had all been burned by a mutual brother. There were a few of them, actually, that were really doing some things in the back.
So what was that? What were the things that they were kind of doing? What do you? I mean, if you're down to kind of get into the detail of it.
You know, there's some things with personal relationships.
Right. We don't need to
violated. There were some different things that were true violations of the Brotherhood that were above and beyond, like violations of marriage. So when you have people that are involved with other people's mates and you're breaking up marriages within the movement, and you're breaking up movements within your own chapter.
Right.
Those are the types of things where, in my opinion, they're completely unforgivable.
Right.
And when you go to your president and you present this information to him,
the president of the chapter.
yeah, and he turns on you because these are all his people.
Right.
Versus doing what was actually morally right as well as ethically right within our chapter. I mean, it was fake. I mean, once he didn't do what was necessary, which was throw out these foul people from the movement who were wearing a Perry to be like a real Proud Boy. You can't just wear a Perry. And that was where things, for me, I was calling people out like I do in life. It
Right.
didn't matter.
You don't seem to be one of those people who's afraid of the conflict.
At all. And see, I've realized too, like I didn't understand, looking back now, how much of a competition it was, because I was the only like live streamer, and I was involved in the same chapter. So I think there was a lot of drama that I wasn't aware of, and things that,
like jealousy and stuff like that.
I've heard echoes of that was a major reason. I've heard reasons of just money, donations, people giving money. So when you're there and there's somebody else in the movement nearby, they're not receiving money that they've become accustomed to, right? When you and there were, it just went so deep. It was so petty, and then when the nationalism stuff got brought up, the racism. That was really the snapping point for me.
Meaning you saw people in your group, or when nationalism and racism was attributed to your group?
No. Well, that wasn't really a problem because I always knew what the left was going to say about us. Right. They always were going to say we were Nazis. They were always going to say that. But the problem was when our people started doing it to us. And that was my problem. I had people in my chapter misconstruing my words and trying to make me out to be somebody who I wasn't. And at the time, one of my really good friends was clearly not a white guy. I mean, it's not even like it matters. I hate to be like that, but we're talking like
hey, if they're gonna play the fucking politics game, or the
identity
politics game, then you know, sometimes it's appropriate to at least say, hey, by the way, I am half Puerto Rican, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Things like that.
That's what I'm saying. Like when I'm rolling around with Jared and Marcos and like my people, I'm an admin for Latinos for Trump. Like it's obvious, that I'm not a racist, but there's a few things that they can do to you in the movement that make you so you're unsellable.
Right. That Scarlet R is a huge one. Once they know that they can clip that to you, it's really hard to shake that.
It is. It's like being a sexual offender. And that's the thing is, once that was thrown out there, it's like the left ran with it, and everything that was created came from our side. It wasn't even like the racism came from the left. It was inflated by our own people. So my chapter decides to take me to some vote of some kind, which it doesn't matter, Proud Boy business or whatever. It was completely it wasn't right. The way that it was done was completely a violation of the laws amongst our chapter. So what I feel like, if even discussing it doesn't matter. I was Jude. I was done dirty. I was done so horrible by them, and I was taken to some Sharia thing online versus like with your chapter and given an actual vote with the people like you're supposed to do. Right. It was just like 8 people.
Did they wrap you in a black bed sheet, or did they?
No, it was not. It was just immediate.
They stone you.
Yeah, it was just immediate. They're like, Jeff, you're gone. You're not welcome here anymore. And then it was like, come to a vote. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought there was already a vote. And they're like, no, it's not how we do it, but the main admins have voted you out. So we're going to tell the guys and you can come back in 2 weeks.
This is something I could be. I mean, there are exceptions and things like that, but sometimes I really feel, and one of the running themes is that humans, we can't really have anything nice, sometimes. And one of the things is, like with musicians, as an example, a lot of musicians in the Bay Area, which is why I'm very grateful that I'm going to be moving, is that it always turns high school even if it comes with like the good intention of, oh, we're just musicians who are hippies and we just love peace and we just want to fight for equality. We're not all trying to get laid at all. No, no, no. That's not what we're doing. No, we're just really peaceful. We love peace. We're not trying to make it. It eventually turns into high school. And that's what it kind of feels like, even though a lot of good intentions and there's certainly some good people still in it, there eventually devolves into some sort of high school stuff. That's what it seems like.
That was exactly what I tried to avoid. We were supposed to, and I think that's where you start to see it in the name, Proud Boys, You Got Boys, versus versus men in an organization. That's kind of where I was thinking, like, Proud Men might have been better, but it just, for me, it was too much of just a bad thing that I didn't want to associate in the chapter that I was in. And if we're trying to fight a battle to preserve these things, why are we violating them?
And why are you having infighting and shit like that?
I mean, it was like we're spending more time fighting amongst our group than we are out doing patriotic stuff, doing legislation. I was the only one that was like making political moves and trying to make noise and actually get stuff done. And yeah, it might be because we own a business or whatever and we're able to be at home, but it's still a matter of like there's things going down. You're joining a group. You're putting yourself out there. You're using me as your front man, and then you're telling me what I'm doing is great, but then in the back you're talking bad about me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you have no problem taking credit for what I do when it's good, but then just stab me in the back as when it suits you to move up the ladder. And that's kind of where I was like, yeah, I'm good on that. You know?
Yeah, I was a part of a group within another kind of slight. It's not really an organization. It's kind of an organization, but they stay unorganized. And one of the things that I found that happened within that small kind of group was that, number one, it did definitely turn into high school, and number two, the mostly one person at the top, like kind of the leader of the group, eventually became untouchable within that group, where like, okay, we can all make fun of each other except for this one motherfucker. And number two, that person, that leader, but kind of things came to light that person was doing some weird sexual stuff. Mostly like if I brought a girlfriend around or whatever, like I kind of felt like I needed to almost protect her from this leader of the group.
I know what you're saying.
Who was going to be, and then when it came to like, well, wait a second, you shouldn't be doing that stuff. Again, this leader of the group was untouchable. You know what I mean? Was without question. You can't question this person.
Right.
And so there's this weird kind of like, oh, hey, you're just being possessive of your girl. It's like, no, it's not me who needs to work on not being possessive of the females that I'm with. It's you're a kind of a creepy, lecherous motherfucker.
Right. I know exactly
you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
But he could hide behind the spiritual principle of, well, you need to take care of your own side of the street. And it's a weird thing that the leaders of some groups, there are people who are born leaders, but
abuse power.
Yeah.
That was the problem. It was financial abuse, and it was abuse of people who had no direction. Because if you noticed, a lot of the followers were the people who were really hurting in life, versus virtuous people that you need to be in an organization. And that's why, again, it's like this fallacy. It was just so fake. When I look back at it now and I look at the videos and the people I was with,
right,
it's an embarrassment.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm moving a different direction for a reason.
Right.
And
that requires, if you're looking in that same direction, you're looking at what helps people like, and this is part of the reason why I really like this podcast, besides just I'm amazing, patreon.com/conservatish, is transparency.
Right.
I can't hide. Like, motherfuckers know. You know what I mean? Yeah. In fact, there are some people who know some, like, secrets about me, you know what I mean, or like things that these missteps I made in dates or in dating or in or financially, my brokenness and things like that, where like if I wanted to hide behind that, or if I wanted to hide that stuff, I can't really do that on a podcast, you know what I mean, because people know me, you know what I mean. Like now I've talked about there's only like one thing I won't talk about as far as this podcast goes, which is just for me and my spiritual leaders, you know what I mean, like me and my people. But outside of that, like, it's transparency that helps not just the other people who want to believe in the podcast and believe in what I say and enjoy this, but it also helps me so that I don't feel like I have to fucking hide anything.
Oh man,
you know what I mean? It's when you feel like you have to hide something, it's not spiritually good for you. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, it doesn't help the cause. It's bad for the people, you know, mentally, emotionally.
I 100% agree with that, and that's why when I came into this movement, I felt fresh. And it was I had a different aura. I have felt completely rejuvenated by some things like my life. I'd gotten married, I'd gotten kids, I graduated from college. I was working to help my grandmother with her dementia. Things were like finally starting to move up, right? I was feeling like, I guess you could say, spiritually strong. And then I'm in this environment with a bunch of people that are like tugging at that positive aura. Like you could just tell that it was bringing out a lot more negative in me than it was good. And it's like I catch myself, like I don't think if I was running around with a gang of men that were all angry at life that we would have been screaming at people and I would have been as belligerent as I was. I mean, a lot of it was like group think and like mob mentality, right? You get out there and you're like feeling it and you think you're like, and of course I think looking back, I did some stuff that was maybe a little rambunctious or crazy, right? Radical, but I won't apologize for it, but I will adjust my behavior in the future.
Going forward, right?
Yeah, because I think that everything makes you stronger. So I'm not going to ever forgive apologize for something. I will forgive people. I'll move forward. But that requires apologies and people manning up and willing to admit that they made their mistakes. And what I'm noticing in this movement is a lot of people just point fingers and blame instead of taking accountability for like what they've done wrong.
And I feel like it happens on both sides. I think that's part of the reason why so many people are apt to run into the social justice warrior thing, because just like Proud Boys are on the other side, on the like I said, anything can turn into high school. And what happens is, if someone feels homeless, not literally homeless, but feels homeless, they can find a home in a group. And it's easy to find a group where you are virtuous. You know, well, I am in this group, so therefore this means something about me as a person, morally. And of course, I'm a good person who believes in anti-racism, or I'm a person who believes in social justice. So I must be an Antifa guy. You know, now I can fit into this group, and then that turns into all kinds of splinter groups within their group, and then that, you know, Camille. You ever listen to Camille Paglia?
No.
Love Camille Paglia. Camille Paglia is this first wave feminist, not this third wave, fourth wave bullshit. She's lesbian and talks a lot about how crazy feminism has turned into, has become, and has talked about how she would go to feminism conferences, like when she first started to realize, oh, this movement has now turned sour. I think it was in the 90s or late 80s, she tells stories about going to this feminism conference and them having a group that now splinters into smaller groups where, like, okay, we'll have a women of color feminism group because these white girls don't know intersectionality, and then within that women of color, suddenly, well, I'm an overweight woman of color feminist, so you guys don't know my struggle. So they had to split and kick other people out. So it just got smaller and smaller and splintered and splintered, and that's if you don't go into it with that knowledge, I mean, obviously you had your experience, so you can carry that into other things. You know
I'm never going to make those mistakes again. I'm going to roll solo, is like I'm doing, and I use the group as a group of people that I know I can rely on if I need someone to come to my rallies and be patriotic. They will come out to my events. Like the SOJ guys are legitimately good people. They're older men that work. Like we don't really have any younger guys. They're all like, I'm middle of the pack. Like there's maybe 2 or 3 that are younger than me, but the rest are 45 and 50, like men doing stuff, like actual men, you know what I mean? Besides that, they're just doing their own thing, raising their family, doing what men are supposed to do. If you're not going to be active in the movement and you're a part of the Proud Boys, then I feel you should be married and having children and working. If you're not going to be going, you need to be above that 2.1 limit, right?
2.1 limit
of kids per family. You better be having you better be doing
contributing in some way.
Because the whole reason why they claim this immigration issue is needed is because our breeding is at 1.7. Okay. Well, they're like, well, you guys need immigrants because you need to be able to have Social Security for when you retire. That's what the left's logical argument is.
Okay.
And you're like, well, just step up your kids, have 3 kids. Then the American values can stay here a little bit longer, and we don't have to bring in so much immigration. We can kind of play to their. That's how I feel, though. But I'm like, if you're gonna be a Proud Boy, either you better get out if you don't got kids and you're not working. You better be out being patriotic and helping with legislation. Or if you're married
and you're too busy, then you
have kids and raise them to be good human beings.
Right.
A man and a woman, if you have a boy and a girl, and raise them to be good human beings and treat people as they're supposed to be treated. You know what I'm saying? That's all I ask.
Yeah. Before you joined the Proud Boys, what did you have the similar values? Or was it the type of thing where you're like on the border? So, like as an example, for me, before I started researching more and more, one of my main kind of opening ups was after the 2016 election, and everyone was like, "Trump is the devil," blah blah blah. I was like, is he really? Let me start digging a little bit. I'm like, there's some things I disagree with him, but he's not that bad. And the main thing that opened me up, he's disappeared now, and it's a longer story, but was Milo Yiannopoulos. When anytime anybody's like, this guy's a fucking Satan, I'm like, anytime a group of people all believe one thing, I'm immediately just like, fuck you, I'm gonna
look into it.
So I looked into it, and I'm like, I kind of like what this motherfucker's saying. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's a little over the top, and he's a little bit of a pain. He's a bit of a needle, trying to be a pain in the ass. But on most of the things he was saying back in 2017 or whatever, I was like, yeah, I can get down on that. And I kind of
He's
get down
just
on that.
gay. That was it. He was just everything about him was perfect except for the identity politics, and I think that made the left scared because he was a gay man with conservative values. So they couldn't be like, well, you're a racist because he was with a black man.
Right.
So they just didn't fit the narrative. You know what I mean?
Right.
I loved Milo's speeches and the things he talked about. You're right. He was right on point with a lot of things that I agreed with completely, and it just didn't make them happy. So they immediately got rid of him, just like Laura Loomer. And
I don't hear about her very much anymore.
No, she's gone, and they're having an event in July, like July 6th in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Because they've all been banned. So they're trying,
nice.
They're trying to raise some money. You know what I'm saying? They're going to have like a VIP event or something where you can meet a bunch of people from.
Speaking of which, speaking of people being banned, just to tell a little bit of the background. So I drove up here, and then I come in here, and I'm getting set up, and there's a TV out on outside, and it's and all of a sudden I hear not even a hit from Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, but a song from Smashing Pumpkins, and I'm like, what TV show is playing Smashing Pumpkins? It's fucking InfoWars, dude. It's goddamn Alex Jones was playing Smashing Pumpkins. You gotta love him for that. You can get mad about, well, you shouldn't have said this or shouldn't have said that, but he's playing Smashing Pumpkins. Can you at least give him? Let's. I mean, the man's got good taste in music. Let's at least say that.
Music. I love all his music, these things too. And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with listening to Alex Jones. You don't have to run with everything he says.
Right.
I use all news sources to provide me with, I guess I look for firsthand information. If I can find a primary source that's from whatever story, that's my goal. Because I learned that in school. I have a degree in journalism and communications. I have a minor in business. Badass. And so for me, I like research, and I look into things. And even if Fox News throws up some story, I don't like Fox News. I know who their owners are. I know all the garbage behind everything. Washington Post is Jeff Bezos, but they still throw out real stories occasionally, and you can go find stuff, and I like to do that, and I just go all around. And Alex Jones is the same way. I will take some of Alex Jones, digest it, look into it, find whatever study it is he's talking about, and maybe instead of presenting Alex Jones to the media, the social media world, I usually present the study. That's how I've been making people get a little bit better. And then this way, they're not like, oh, you're promoting Alex Jones. I go find the actual primary source that he uses, and then that way I can present the evidence, and it's a little more digestible for people.
It's like that thing when they were, 2008 maybe? I can't remember exactly what year, but it was either Howard Stern or Opie and Anthony were going around and they were talking to different. Actually, similar people did it similar ways in the 2016 election, but they go to people on the street and they're like, "Hey, what do you think about Hillary's proposal to, to limit or to, on this certain issue?" And people are like, "Oh yeah, I really like that." And it's like, actually, that was Trump.
Right.
We just said Hillary, and people are like, "Oh," it's like, so like dig a little past the source. It is so difficult for me, who prides myself on being, an incredibly smart podcaster. For me to like have to, I don't want to dig in. It's laziness. It's confirmation bias. It's just when I get it from the source, I immediately trust whatever sources that I already have. And so to practice that muscle of just, wait, I like this guy. He's probably telling the truth, but let me step back and look at the source. Or look at, where they're citing or whatever. That's a good thing. So my hat's fucking off to you. You know what I mean? It's a difficult thing to do,
Well, Facebook, I was looking at it too because there's this monetization app on your business thing on the Facebook, and I was looking at it because it says I'm eligible for the thing, and it says because I don't ever post fake news articles, and I was thinking about that. I've never been flagged. I've never been banned. I've never gotten any of that, and I think a lot of that is
lift the mic up.
A lot of that has to do, I can attribute to the fact that I'm using primary sources. It doesn't matter. It's not fake news. It doesn't matter if you have a scientific research to show and you post the academic journal.
Right.
They can't say anything about it, and a lot of people, I get a lot of shares and I get a lot of views and comments on stuff because people are like, wow, I've never seen this, and it's because it'll be a story from somewhere in the Middle East or somewhere in the UK where it's actually the source, and they're like, whoa, this is going on. You're like, that would never make the mainstream media ever.
Even ones that support my argument. There was one of my favorite, like that feeling when you're right and it finally comes to the surface and you're just like, like just that warm feeling of like, told you. I love that. And there was a story out of UK where knife crimes are way on the right. They are so far up, and they've gotten rid of all the guns. Yay,
acid
London!
Attacks.
Right, acid attacks, and all these knife attacks are on the rise. I'm like, I was like, wait a second, let me dig a little deeper. And I even saw that the Mirror, the Mirror UK paper, which is not right leaning or whatever, was like, yeah, even they were like, yeah, all right, yeah, it is. It did lots and lots of knife fights or knife attacks, and I'm just like, it just feels good just to like, I told you, motherfuckers.
They're still gonna kill you. It doesn't matter who it is. They're gonna find a way.
It doesn't matter, dude. Let's get into it. Let's start with one topic. Let's start with the Muslim topic, because this is a contentious one, just like many of them. And I knew that having you on, it was going to be contentious, and I just love that. It just makes me feel good. But it's off the fucking chain. It's not just the immigration, or maybe there's immigration too, but it's not just like, oh, I don't like brown people, so I don't want them in. That's a shallow thing to think, and I feel like people know better, but maybe they don't. Maybe it's that knee jerk. You're against immigration, so you're against brown people, whether they be Mexicans or Muslims, and blah blah blah. So what is your stance on it? Because for me, I relate to you and I agree with you, but what's your stance on it?
I personally don't have a problem with somebody who's, I guess, a progressive Muslim, but I think that's hard because if you're a true Orthodox and you really believe in what you're reading, as I would if I did anything, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to go 100%. So if you read it for what it is, it's not pro-American and it's not pro-Christian. Right. So I guess ultimately I'd have to say,
or Jew for that matter.
I mean, if you're a Wahhabist or you're somebody who believes in the true doctrine of
Wahhabist, interesting. I've never heard that word.
Really?
No.
Oh, well, the Wahhabists are the ones that are cool with cutting off the clit. They're the ones that...
Oh, yeah.
They're the
Dude,
extreme.
there are lots of motherfuckers. Ooh,
yeah,
they love cutting off clits over there.
They are the extreme. They're the ones that will stone you to death. They will beat you to death. They're the ones that are like before Abraham.
So like a jihadist type of thing? Or like...
Well, I mean, I guess you could say it. They believe in jihad and they believe in a caliphate and they believe in all of that stuff, right? Okay. So they want to ultimately make the Quran come true. And I mean, I've studied Middle Eastern culture and society in college. I took the liberal classes they force you to take. I took the Muslim class, the one on Islam, and I took it with Professor Ayad Al-Kazaz. And I mean, I've read it. I know what it's about. I've got all the notes. I've learned from a person that has been a Muslim person their whole life, who has worshipped Allah, and he openly admitted in school, it's like, this is a very patriarchal religion. It is very, if you are not Americanized, it is not something that would be able to coexist with Christian values.
So even though it was a progressive liberal maybe teacher, or a Muslim teacher, he was open about that fact.
It was just teaching, because I mean, it wasn't, this is the thing, is they embrace it, and that's what's really weird, is like, I have a hard time with why all the feminists embrace Islam too. Like, all the teachers in school had no problem with Islam, and it's like, they kill gays. Right. They throw you off roofs. Buildings. Right. Like, they will stone you to death. Why are you guys embracing this? And I think I'm really just blown away. I mean, I guess I have logic. I don't judge people, but I think that they should stay in their own realm. If they don't like what we believe and they think everything we do is wrong, then why would you come here? Right. That's all I've ever thought. Like, if women with their hair down, that's what we do. Right. We have 300 million people that wear their hair out. Right. If that makes you angry, why would you come here?
Well, part of it, okay, from a maybe a logical liberal standpoint, or maybe a feelings liberal standpoint, because let's be real, it's probably because they figure over there is so much worse that they have to go somewhere, maybe, right? I don't think that's, I mean, I know it's shit over there in a lot of ways.
But why?
But because of the
it's not like there's a bunch of us over there.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I've said so many times on this podcast, is that what bothers me the most about, because I find myself very, kind of socially liberal, like in a lot of ways. Like, go fuck each other. I don't care what
feels good to do in the streets, whatever.
Do it. Very libertarian, a lot of different things. But one of the things that fucking bothers me the most is the knee-jerk reaction of white people bad, white people, brown people, they obviously are very good. Do you know how many brown people do some horrible, horrendous shit, and not just over there, here, like a fucking, did you see that meme? Did you see that meme? Those Thanos memes where, like, he's talking to his daughter or whatever. I didn't watch the fucking movie, but his daughter Thanos says, we got rid of 52% of the crime rate. His daughter asks, how did you do it? We subtracted 13%.
Damn.
That's a race joke, is what that is.
And I actually had that conversation earlier today, and what's funny is, like, that's the whole population. If you look at who's really doing it, it's the 7%
of black people.
Yeah, of that percentage. I mean, it's not, women aren't out raping people.
No.
So I mean, you got to look at who would be out committing the rape. It's the other half. So if it's 6.5% committing, that many, you're kind of like, whoa. And so you're right. It's just,
I mean, and that's just America. I mean, I personally, I get to volunteer at a prison, and I love those men. And there are white men, black men, brown men, doesn't matter. But those dudes have actually killed people. Like, it's not like, the cop chased me down, and all these people, all these liberals have these ideas of they've seen Shawshank Redemption too many fucking times. They just assume that everybody there is just a good meaning person who just got unlucky. Like, no, those motherfuckers have killed motherfuckers. Now, I'm not saying that means kill them all or they're all bad people that you can't change. Mm-hmm. But the truth is there, let's look at it logically. And I think part of it is the reason why they lean that so far on that is because they just don't know any black people. They just don't know any brown people. The white liberal, the SJW liberal, just is so ignorant of, they just don't know any brown people. So they just assume that all of them are, because they're out there. You know what I mean? They're not in my daddy's cul-de-sac where I grew up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where, you know, I grew up in this nice little white suburban cul-de-sac and then got shipped to UC Berkeley. So of course the only black people I know is a loud, unfuckable brown bitch with a fucking with a sign and a bullhorn. You know what I mean? Like, of course that must be that she's saying that she's a victim. Oh, amazing. God, I just spray it everywhere.
No, but I know exactly what you mean. I honestly, I know exactly what you mean. They grow up in these areas that are not surrounded by the people that they think they know, and that it's the same ones that they're trying to write legislation for. They don't understand these people, and they think they can better them. The worst thing I think about the liberal is that they honestly feel they're helping people.
Yeah.
That's the worst part about it, is they don't know when to stop. They honestly think they're helping you.
It's an assumed moral superiority.
Yes, and you talk about racist. I mean, the fact that they don't think the blacks are capable of taking care of themselves should tell you alone. And I mean, I had a discussion again with a man today who's an Islamic black man who is in my neighborhood. He was a boy that I played baseball with. You know, I was his coach, and we had some really in-depth conversations today, and there were lots of things that we agreed on. And I mean, we were able to have plenty of conversations, and one of them that we were really able to agree on was the sexualization of our kids is something that we all need to like start focusing on too. We need to start helping these kids because there's a lot of misdirection in school. Like I know you say with your libertarian views, you don't really care, but I mean, if you have a drag queen in school reading your child storybooks, I mean, is that something you're okay with?
Let's see. It depends on how. It depends. I think it's okay, but I don't like where it's coming from. If it's once, okay.
They've already found 2 registered sex offenders that have already spent over 10 years in prison, and one was the actual organizer. Okay, the man was arrested for sex with a minor under 8. And did 10 years in prison, and the only man that found it was Alex Jones. Alex Jones sent PIs to go take pictures of all the license plates in the parking lot, and they ran them all, and they found registered sex offenders, and the registered sex offenders were the organizers.
So let's pause real quick because I want people to understand. Because I know that you have already signed off on, like saying Alex Jones is the devil. Can you at least just take that thing that he did, just that by itself? We can compartmentalize. That thing by itself, already, you have to go like, okay, that's pretty badass. Like you have.
I mean,
you have to at least say that, right?
Like he protected
Hate the
kids.
motherfucker all you want,
He
but
saved our kids.
Come on.
I mean, it's like, hey, no matter what, that was some pretty G shit right there, in my opinion.
And and to your point, see, now that I'm thinking about it, like, I think it's fine for gay people, or like, okay, do you feel the same, or? So you're against drag queens reading to kids?
No, I'm against drag queens reading to children in libraries and them indoctrinating them. That's like having them shake their booty. Like when you see the videos, it wasn't just reading books. It was a little bit above and beyond. Come sit on my lap. Come take pictures. Talking about lifestyle. It was like
talking about life. That's.
It's not like, oh, here's a little session. And you're gonna get a. I mean, when the art teacher used to come in, we got an hour, and they would teach us art for an hour and go. This is not anywhere near the same as some kids sitting around with their parents pushing them to the middle of this.
What do you think that besides the creepy fox? What do you think the goal there is? Did they assume? Maybe they just assume that if these kids reach a certain age without knowing that drag queens are fine, because I know and love a lot of drag queens. I've even fucking done creepy drag myself. Okay. But maybe they assume that these kids will grow up and be hateful? Is that what they assume?
I think that it's the phobia, right? The left, again, is so smart that they know that these people are such a minority that they're not going to encounter these people by the time that they've already established their opinions of them, right? Because you're only going to see them on TV. You're only going to see random stories or internet memes, right? I mean, so they have no other option other than to drop them off in libraries and schools so that kids would see them.
Which is an insane idea. I'm 32 years old and I learn new shit fucking constantly. So I think that's parenthood, is what that is. I think being a good parent is teaching a kid to not be 100% set in your ways all the time. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't have a kid, so who the fuck do I know? But I'm assuming that it's good to, like, teaching a kid to be, like, set in their ways by a certain age is silly. Now, we all do that.
No,
we
I
all
agree.
are guilty of that. Yeah. But it's not like there's a danger. Like, these, as an example, you know what it is? They assume that by a certain age they're already going to be.
And that's what I'm saying. They are, and it's the equivalent of, I was talking to my wife about it. Why do you send kids to church hella young? Because you want to have that fear instilled, right? I think that they're literally using it as church, the equivalent. They're equivocating this youth. They understand psychologically there's a certain age where if you introduce something, it socially becomes acceptable. Right. So they're doing it in heavily populous areas where they can influence a certain youth. Right. And I mean, you look at what's going on, it's like there are a bunch of lesbians with children that they've gotten IVF with. And I mean, if they're going to tell me, and this is what goes against everything, because the LGBT originally was like, well, we're not like that. We don't, we'll raise our kids to be the way they are. And now it's to the point where you're dragging your kids that were born via IVF, or you found a gay man to impregnate you, and you had a baby for them, and he got, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's gotten so weird. And then you're bringing the kids to drag queen story time to make them feel like your lifestyle's normal, when it's like,
well, and there's a big ass difference between, mommy. What are gay people? Gay people are people who are a man who, instead of loving a woman like me and your dad, he loves a man. Right. You know what I mean? That's as simple as that needs to be. You know what I mean? You don't need to like shake booty. Like, you don't need to do that. There doesn't need to be a dress up time. You know what I mean?
Look at Desmond the Amazing.
Who's that?
You haven't seen Desmond the Amazing?
No.
Oh my God, dude, we've got to get you on. So you will just go to with the comedy you do. You got to see. So what
I am a hilarious man. Patreon.com/conservatish. You fucks. Sorry.
He
continue.
is the scary byproduct of what you would think would happen if kids saw drag queens in their schools, and your kid decided to be a full-blown drag queen at 8 years old, and your son wants to. And we're talking walking with the stride, walking, painting your nails, wanting to cut off your junk, wanting to full-blown hormone therapy. Right. We're talking.
That's Desmond the Amazing, the little kid.
Yes, the one that looked all drugged out, and he's like talking about sniffing ketamine, and I mean, you're like, Nambla much?
Right. So here's the thing: as much as guys and girls, as much as I love drag queens, like, sexuality is way too early to introduce. Like, you can't do that at a certain age. Like, that's creepy. That would be creepy if straight people were doing it. So, yeah, that is.
Well, it's like I have a gay friend on my page who argues with me. He's gay and he supports Desmond, and I made a comment of, because he says Honey Boo Boo was what he tried to use the example of. He goes, well, Honey Boo Boo was thrown up on a stage and yada yada yada, and I said, there's a difference between the sexualization. There was no one throwing money at Honey Boo Boo. They weren't at a strip club removing clothes, doing. You cannot compare the two. You're in a gay strip club with a young boy having money thrown at him, and you're talking about girls in a beauty pageant. You can't compare the two. One is a girl who's being still treated as a girl. The other is a boy who's being told he's a girl.
There are some of that. I totally am on board. Although I do think I would point out one small caveat that beauty pageants are a little fucking creepy.
I never said they were okay, but the one thing that I said was, at least it's telling the girl that she's a girl, right. And second of all, you're not having money thrown at you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference. Twerk it, girl. Like I was saying, the sexualization, putting makeup on, is what he's doing.
Right.
He doesn't need to go to the strip club. Right. Why do you need to do that? You know what I mean? Why can't you go to a drag queen drag show? Because it's not socially acceptable, so they've got to bring the LGBTQP involved, which, they've now added the P for pedophilia.
No, God.
Oh, dude.
Not through my circles, I'll tell you that much. Although, besides the P, there has been there's a plus sign now.
Yeah, because that means there's a whole bunch more, which is included in a P. Because they're the most discriminated group in the world, according to the LGBTQPs, right? NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. These people are normalizing it, and this is where it's going, and it's what we've always said. Once you open Pandora's box, which is why.
Now, when you look back on that, where do you feel that? I mean, do you genuinely know gay people and
I'm
think
genuinely
gay people
work with gays in this movement. I'm friends, but I 100% do not agree with the lifestyle. I think that it's ultimately selfish. I don't think that it's a bad decision, health-wise. I mean, they do spread more diseases according to the health department. It's just known, and maybe that is a part of the lifestyle because they have to hide it and they don't feel it's socially acceptable. But you could still use protection. You could still find clean people, and you associate that to drug use. A lot of the depression, they're all committing suicide, and they're doing
trans people. You mean
trans and gay? Their depression rates are higher. The suicide rates are higher than the average normal heterosexual being.
Really?
And, oh yeah, you look into it, and that's why when you start looking at these things as health issues, if you're not going to say, for instance, gay people are somewhere off hormonally, then it has to be a gender thing, right? And then they're a race of people, so you either got to say they're born that way or it's not a choice. Well, then show me they're born that way, right? Because I mean, if you're not going to show me that they're choosing to be gay, then show me the DNA evidence.
Yeah, I guess there isn't DNA evidence necessarily.
No, there's no chromosomal differences. There's no, I mean, yeah, we've got people that are XYY, like you've got your Jamie, the girl from that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where she was like the cop, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
She's XYY.
Oh, really?
She has an extra chromosome, and it makes her like boyish.
Okay.
And that is something that has been verifiable, in my opinion. Okay.
Scientifically.
I'll consider that.
But I will take umbrage with, not umbrage, but I will disagree with you on this point. I know a lot of motherfuckers who are straight up there. And now let me give you a caveat. There's a difference between gays and lesbians. Lesbians, there are many who are just come out of the womb, with a Giants hat on, and then there are some that kind of pick it all up along the way. You know what I mean? Or pick it up along the way because they're angry at men, and so they're going to try out some vagina.
So it's a choice.
Yeah. On lesbians, yeah. Yeah.
You don't think men that are unable to get any pussy at all become gay?
No.
I do. I think there are fat men and ugly men who have decided to just fuck other men because they are unable to get pussy. And I think
those
that's
motherfuckers turned to Star Wars long before they took.
Well, I mean, what do? You go bang other Star Wars guys, right? Elton John is gay.
Those motherfuckers don't. They have like two people. They're two sexual partners their entire life, and it comes from anime broads who give them pity pussy. That's really what it is.
See, Elton John gay is different than and I think that's where we start looking at things like the atrazine, which people don't want to talk about.
What's that?
The olfact. Well, it was what people talk about with the frogs, right? Okay. All of the stuff that's in the
Alex
water,
Jones thing. All
the fertilizer in the water.
Okay.
It goes back to the fact that all these women are throwing all this pregnancy pills. We've got all these different hormones from all the fertilizers being used and all of the different agriculture.
Right.
It washes off and it's unable to be pulled from the water system. Okay. And it's been proven that there are different hormones used in these, like Roundup, for instance, right? Is just being sued out of control for the cancer. Well, they're talking about different things that affect the olfactory.
Right.
Now, you wouldn't be attracted to the smell of a woman if your olfactory senses have been messed with. And what they're getting at is the reason why gay people are not attracted to the opposite sex is because they've potentially been exposed to hormones that have affected what your smells are being, how they're received. So pheromones play a major role in who you're attracted to.
Sure.
If we're getting hormones in our water, hormones in the atmosphere.
It's possible. Why is this getting out of focus here? It's possible, but I feel like I know too many gay people who are just straight up okay, this is another thing as far as like social construct, and it could be a social construct, but there are just kids, there are little boys who you just know when they're kids. There's just something.
Is there not a reason?
A little.
Do you not have a control? I mean, I'm
Maybe,
being
it's
100% with
possible.
you. Like, you got to look at it. A lot of people, like, they start to attribute, like, the acne medication. When people get pregnant, they take acne medication. And these different hormones in these acne medications have been found to change and just change the baby.
Right.
Because the hormones involved in these things.
Right.
Hormones.
Like chicken. Like how there's like chicken.
Why would it be?
What
What about the little girls today? How much more robust they are. Little girls grow up a hell of a lot faster than they used to. I'm just saying, there's something in the water.
No, that is a valid. Okay, I'm not throwing that all the way out. That is a possibility. But
Bull dykes, look at them. They look like straight. I mean, they look like a race of people. Don't they?
that is true.
And I mean, cutting their hair.
Wouldn't that
hair.
go against your idea as far as the social construct go? Wouldn't that maybe?
Well, you said there are some, and that was my argument. You said there are some that choose to, and then there are ones that I think
bull
are
dykes
hormonally.
are not dykes are like straight up like bull dykes. They're not the choice ones. Those are the ones who are like, "What up? How you doing, buddy?" I'm talking lipstick lesbians, and I talk about this all the time, and it offends some people, but I don't really care. My experience is my experience, and my experience is I know people in my family who she was in a committed relationship with a man for a long time, and it was fine and whatever, and then eventually they split up, and then she came out. You know what I mean? She was the type, and I've talked to her about it at length. She was the type who kind of picked it up along the way. She kind of realized when she was younger, she was like, yeah, I could see this, but it wasn't like she can still see that a man is attractive, or she's been attracted to other men in her life and things like that. But her partner, on the other hand, was just always, there wasn't even ever like a question. She just knew who she was, and she's, and I love her to death. I love them both very much. But you can tell. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between, and she's not even like bull dyke necessarily, but she's just like a carpenter. You know what I mean? She just has that
thick
stilo.
Yeah, I mean, see, and that's why I think it's hormonal. And I mean, you look at it, okay? Why are there people that have certain body builds? It's not. I think there's a difference between hormonal and race and gender. There are men and women.
Sure.
Okay? And there are blacks and whites.
Right.
And then there are people who are hormonally imbalanced. I feel like if we're willing to change, it goes back to the transgender. Why are we willing to take someone to the other sex instead of repairing them? We never consider reparative. We go to immediately over to the opposite side and spend all this. I go, we never consider giving someone a balance. Because I have friends that are hormonally imbalanced, and they go to a doctor, and their doctor gives them testosterone, and it evens them out, and it makes their mood change. It makes them man again. They want to work out. Their waist gets smaller because they're able to do more. Their sleep changes. So why do we just, there's an agenda. And that's why, like, I understand, but why do we go to psychologists and they won't allow you to fix your kid? They want to change your kid.
When a kid has, an imbalance, for, as an example, and needs to get put on bipolar medication or a depression medication or whatever, the goal there is to stabilize and get this person better, it seems.
Right.
But with it, when it comes to that, it's an interesting point. But as far as disagreeing with the gay lifestyle, do you feel like it's from a moral standpoint for you? Like, do you feel like it's like a religious standpoint? What does it feel like for you?
Not religious.
If it wasn't an indoctrinating thing.
I think personally it's because it always leads to more. And this is, I guess, just me being straight black and white and not gray. I like law. I like order. So what I like best about the only straight people get to marry and all the stuff, simply everyone else is discriminated against. It's as simple as that. Not just some groups, because then you get that intersectionality. Well, I'm more of this. Right. Well, everyone gets discriminated against. The only ones getting married are heterosexuals. Right. That's how it's going down. Okay. Because then what happened is you get the gays, which is cool because you got some like beautiful lesbians or whatever, and then you get the bull dykes but then it goes to now they want to adopt children. Right. Because you can't deny them the rights to adopt children, right? So that's where we've gone next. And then I always bring up won't they influence their kids to not be heterosexual? And they go, oh, no, that doesn't happen. And I go, Well, if I'm an alcoholic and if I drink in front of my kids or I do drugs, it influences them, right? If I'm a bad person around my
Sometimes
kids,
the opposite.
sometimes the opposite, which is true. If you're
Right.
too much of a Puritan, your kid ends up going the opposite too.
Right.
I've got friends who are Mormons in Utah that claim that college is like 50% gay. And you wonder, it's like, is it because they're all rebelling? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I just personally don't think that there's a reason for it other than selfishness. I just ultimately think if you're not going to breed, then you're imbalanced and you don't have a purpose. I mean, you can.
Now, have you felt like this before you had kids?
I've always felt this way. I mean, my child, if he was gay, I would be highly disappointed. Like, I mean, I would be highly disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. I just
No, and that's a valid thing. That's one of those things when it comes down to like the Kevin Hart jokes or the Tracy Morgan jokes. They're talking honestly about if you're a dude and your dude son says that he's not gonna like follow in your kind of dude footsteps, that's got to be a disappointing.
I want my genetics to go on.
That.
I feel very strongly about my heritage, and I mean, it's not a race thing. It's just my lineage is old. We're strong. We've got a very. I've had my DNA tested. I'm incredibly European, and our lineage is like 275,000 years old. It's a really old line, and it's like for me, it's like I've only got one boy.
Right.
If he doesn't have a kid, I mean, I feel like it's gone. My name's gone. Everything's gone. You know what I mean? And
now, do you feel like it's possible? Because I know some motherfuckers. I know some gays who are just quiet and cool, especially like the older ones who are just kind of like chill. Like it's not like they're feverish for more or anything like that. They don't even like do, especially because these days it's a lot easier for gays. So they're not doing like activism and shit. They just have a beautiful house up in San Francisco and they're just doing their accounting job or their real estate job and they're just living. You know
what are you gonna do though? What do you you're just living, just paying taxes. You're not contributing to. You're contributing to a carbon footprint, in my opinion. You're not contributing to our society unless you are out helping people. You are just traffic on the road.
Right.
You are taking resources from me.
The ones I'm thinking specifically do a lot of help for other people.
And that's cool. But see, then you always end up having an agenda. So usually when they're out doing something, you've got to pick something to go help with. So what do you go help with? It's usually something that is your lifestyle. So then what happens? I mean, the gays always got money. I ain't got a problem with the gays. But why is that? It's usually a pretty selfish thing, right? They got money. They're smart.
I think they don't have kids. Maybe that's it.
Well, but now they got kids. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes.
Okay, so but it goes back to, do you believe ultimately that
does that mean that if somebody is the fulcrum really ultimately the idea of kids?
Yeah. That's what life's about. That's what you're put here for. And I mean, if you're not, and this is me, I guess, being old school. I feel like this.
And does that come from a religious? Just because
I'm not religious. I'm not religious. I think it comes down to, ultimately, we are brought here for a reason. We've got testicles. They have a vagina.
Right.
You are brought here. You have sperm. You have had mitochondrial DNA that has been passed on for you to do a specific thing, and that is to breed. And if you don't have that will, that is whoever telling you your lineage is no good, and you. That's just kind of how it's been.
But wouldn't that necessarily mean that it is a nature thing rather than a nurture thing? You know what I mean? It is an interesting conversation.
No, it is. You know, it's because honestly, like I feel in the past, like I've always wondered, is the same amount of gays today that there were in the past, and they just didn't want to come out for fear of prosecution. I've always wondered that. I don't know. That's a major question of mine, and that's kind of why I don't mind religion being used to an extent, because it keeps people in order, right? If you're raised from a young age, and I think this is a lot of the social breakdown, people today are choosing to be gay because, and I'm saying choose because it's not genetic yet. We haven't found out. So I'm saying people are choosing to be gay because we are raised in a selfish society. We are raised in a materialistic society. And you know what? Before falling in love with my wife, I used to say all the time, I'm never having kids. I'm never getting married. I'm going to travel the world, and I'm just going to do me. And I would be a bored individual. And what happened? I ended up getting married. I had kids. I ended up going to college. I do all these things. And you know what? I am totally different. My brain changed on the way that I think. And like you said, I did change. When I turned 30 and my son was born, I was like, whoa, abortion's like bad, dude. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
and it's
right,
just
right.
because I be 100% with you. Like,
No, for sure.
I didn't think in the past, whoa, like
That's
I'd
a
never,
thing. That's a
dude,
big,
like it was for real. And that's why I think that we have such a disconnect too with the left is there are a lot of them don't have kids. I like to look at all the people today on the Congress, all the misses. They're not married.
I was hanging out. What was I doing? I was at a show yesterday. I do a lot of shows because I'm a musician. Do a lot of music for a lot of motherfuckers. And there was this comedian who was like, "I don't want kids." It was a female. "I don't want kids. Blah blah blah." And there was somebody like, "Woo woo woo," and I just kind of felt there's a reason behind this. Is some doctrinating shit. Like this is some weird. And the reason why I think ultimately is partially because it's a lot easier to control motherfuckers when self-centeredness is the goal. You know what I mean? When that's the marching song is everybody for themselves. Or I don't know. What do you think? What do you think it is? Is it a focus to the selfish?
I think that we've created a very selfish society, and that's why you're seeing this open just opposition to the old school way, right? You see all these millennials that have no guidance, no parents involved, all these fatherless homes, whether you're white, black, Asian, Mexican, whatever. Right. There's all these families that have been raised with no fathers, broken up homes, no marriage. There's like all these things that used to be there. Accountability. I mean, contraception. Like I kind of wonder if contraception, and I understand first, second, third wave feminism, and we're into the fourth. I'm well aware that we've gone to like now we don't even need men, right? And that's kind of where it's like the first wave is like they're like, yeah, get us to work, right. And now it's we don't need men at all. Socially, I think that women have a role, and I think it's to stay at home and raise children, and I think that they give our children the compassion and the empathy and the soft warmness, and then the male hardens them up for life. And I mean that's just kind of.
I'm agreeing with you on a lot of those points. I feel like there's a masculine and a feminine necessary, and even when I look at gay relationships,
I've always said it.
There's a bull dyke.
Why is there someone that gives it and takes it?
There's a lipstick.
Why?
And not just in the fucking bedroom, but these motherfuckers. There's
give orders.
I've seen lipstick lesbians say, "Daddy, can we have that?" to her female. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason why there's masculine and feminine. Let's be real. Nobody wants to fuck a guy who is a bitch. Like nobody wants to fuck that motherfucker. But we're all making believe. Not we, but anyway. So. I'm down with all that. There was damn it. Oh, as far as the selfishness thing, I do feel like it is a more focus on selfishness, and especially the jealousy. When you're selfish, it's a lot more easy to get jealous, and when you're jealous, it's a lot more easy to watch socialism happen, because those are the fucking we're the proletariat and these are the bourgeois, and we're gonna fucking take down the bourgeois. But it's so weird how that. The part of the marching song of the socialists is we got to think of the whole. It's a morality thing of like, oh, let's all think about the poor, when really it is just a more focus on the selfish too. It's where does that switch come around, or is it just complete compartmentalization of logic in general? What do you think?
Oh, that was a deep question. I think that
I really am amazing.
No, I know, right? I think that what we have going on is just there's a plan. So the reason why you're seeing the acceptance now is because the breakdown of socialism and the gays being involved in the shot calling is because they understand they've gotten rich, they've gotten money, and these people aren't having kids, and they want their control for population control. And I think that's why when you ask like what's the deeper root, when you hear that woman going, oh, I don't want this, I don't want that, because they know what's coming. They know that there's some bad things coming because of what we have done with all of our selfish ways. I think that there's going to be a reckoning. Something's going to happen. It's going to wake up the whole world. There's going to be a massive war.
But it's not a conscious. They can't think that, oh, I'm not going to want kids because something's coming. Maybe it's subconscious, but it's not. I don't think it's conscious.
I think the powerful. It's like if you go look at the UK and the places where they're run, go look, none of them have kids, none of them are married, all these people in parliament are just like
fuck London, fuck UK, up the ass. Do you know you can not only can you go to jail for racist tweets, but God damn it! I wanted to talk about this too, and I completely forgot. God damn it. Anyway, you can go to jail for racist tweets. If you say something racist, that is insane. That is fucking all you motherfuckers in America who are like, oh, London's better or Europe's better. Fuck you. And not just that. Why aren't you living there then? Do you know how you can go fucking? Do you know how many countries would love to have you there? You know what I mean? Like go somewhere else. There was that funny joke that Milo said. He said all these people who are complaining about countries run by white men are not clamoring to go live in a country run by black men. They're not running to Nigeria. You know what I mean? You can if you'd like.
Every
but they're
socialist country, I do this to the leftists all the time. I ask them, I go, name a country where socialism works. And they go, Norway, Sweden. And I went, so what, 95% white?
Right.
I went, so how come it's not working in Central America and South America?
Right.
It's a different mindset. It's a different race of people.
Right.
And I think a lot of it has to do with just the way white people were raised. We were raised in the snow. We had to do long-term planning. That's why warfare was easy for us. It's the difference between chess and checkers, right? It's not that there aren't really good checker players, but chess is a lot more deep. It's just it's, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And I think that they don't understand that we've had people who wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they had studied history.
Right.
They'd studied thousands of years of mistakes.
Right.
And these people want to come along that have never read books. They've never lived life. These people were like teenagers that had businesses, and they were like lawyers, and they graduated from major colleges at like 20 years old and were like running plantations and stuff. And we've got people who have never had jobs that are coming along today trying to preach and say that they can do it better. They can do it better.
Which has always happened. I mean, that's what the whole hippie thing movement was too. Is like, oh, these old motherfuckers don't know what they're talking about. I think that's nature in general. When you're a kid, which is fine. I mean, that even makes sense. It's good for nature to position itself that way, so that the young can build something better. To look askance at who came before, what was built before, and go, you know what? Let's make something bigger or make something better. But the problem is that like Shapiro sometimes talks about, is these people don't question, instead of just questioning the tradition or questioning the structure, they just want to take down the structure altogether instead of wondering why the structure was built up. There's a reason why marriage is there. There's a reason why certain capitalism and things like that. There's benefits to those things. Now, certain versions, twisted versions of capitalism can absolutely happen, and there should be we should address that. Certain versions of quote unquote masculine, which I always talk about it very, 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 very clearly. I think fake ass motherfucking masculinity is toxic, not real ass masculinity. Real ass masculinity is sacrificing. Real ass masculinity is strong without having to be a dick at the bar. Not fake ass masculinity, which is like, oh, I'm gonna take this pussy. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
That's not real masculinity. That's insecurity.
The jock that thinks he's bigger and he'll bully you and pee on your shoe at the urinal. Right. That kind of bully versus like John Wayne. Like John Wayne was a man. You could tell like the swagger, and he didn't have to bully people. See, we miss real men in society, and that's another thing. Is music and movies and all this stuff have influenced, and they've turned all of our men into like womanizers, and they think that you can just, no wonder women don't want to be with men. I mean, if men were all talking to you like the way that they're taught on music videos and the way that they're in music in general, I mean, women...
I think it goes the opposite. Finish your point, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I think it goes the opposite, where it's not even that these dudes are being indoctrinated to be ultra fake masculine. I think they're being indoctrinated to be the exact opposite, to be weak, wimpy noodles. Just like when I watch 30 Rock or some of the comedy shows that I fucking adore. Every dude, not 30 Rock so much, but like every dude on Parks and Rec as an example. Ron Swanson is the only fucking dude on that show. Everybody else is like, can I please go take you on a date? And you're my girlfriend when they haven't even had sex. You know what I mean? Like they're such a
they're soy men. They're all betas.
Soy ass beta motherfuckers. And that bothers me so much. And when I talk to women on a real ass basis, not just the good girls who listen to this podcast, but when I talk to women on a fucking real ass basis, they are looking around at what's available. And sure, before the bad version of that was we could beat you and have no consequences. That's the fucked up, twisted version of us having masculinity and accentuating masculinity. But now you're getting this noodle ass motherfucker who's not taking care of his home, who's like, where do you want to go out to eat? All these wimp ass motherfuckers, which is drying up vaginas all across the country.
The women run all over them, right? And the women don't know how to lead. The women, it's like a dog. Like if you've studied any dog psychology, like the dog whisperer, the dog needs to be led. If a dog is not led, it's lost.
Right, and they don't want to lead.
No, they don't.
Want to lead. They want
to be shown.
They want to be with a dude that they can look at and go, "That's my motherfucking man." They want to be Robin to Batman.
See, my wife, she is ballin'. She's the greatest thing ever, right? She is my rock. She's always had my back. Even if I'm wrong, she'll have my back. But she'll, you know what? She'll have no problem calling me out on it. Sure. You're wrong. And that is amazing for me. And you know what, though? She loves the traditional role of like having your back. But I also completely support her in her business endeavors, whatever she wants to do, because it's about the family. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And not just that. And this is something Patrice O'Neill talked about, and I mentioned him on every fucking episode. He's the best comedian that ever lived. Patrice was talking about the reason why, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, but the reason why your relationship, as an example, you make her feel like a woman. Yeah. And in turn, she wants to make you feel like a man. Yes. Which feeds your desire to treat her like a woman, and it becomes this symbiotic thing. It becomes the masculine and the feminine, rather than... Yeah. I mean, I literally had an ex-girlfriend tell me that she had this mental list, and it was after lots of her own, spiritual work and stuff, but also after conversations that she and I had, where I was like, okay, you wonder why you're running into these guys who are like, wimpy ass motherfuckers. You want something that you need an asshole who treats you like a princess. You know what I mean? There's a great song. I want y'all to go look it up. It's called Rough Lover by Aretha Franklin. She said, I need a rough lover. I want a man. Don't want a weak motherfucker.
A lady in the street and a freak in a sheet.
Yeah, similar kind of thing where like they want the security of knowing if shit pops off. Like if you're a dude in a relationship right now and I came to your door to rape and fucking kill the both of you, what the fuck would you do? If you ain't a fucking man, who in the fucking house is going to protect you against a big motherfucker like me? Come on, dude. Be a fucking... And that doesn't mean muscles necessarily. No. That's fucking mind shit. I
hear you.
That's protection.
That's real
If protection isn't your shit, if guidance isn't your shit, come on, dude. Someone's got to. Yes. You can't just two betas with purple hair running around bumping into each other just like... Someone needs to fucking be the dude. You know what I mean?
So... Okay, now that goes back, and I can go back to the original, what we talked about, the Proud Boys. Okay, example, I got into an altercation with a fellow brother, and it was an example. He called my wife a cunt. I'm sorry, dude. There are few things that I will, allow you to say once, and if the next thing out of your mouth isn't an apology, right, it doesn't matter if you're bigger than me, because it's my wife. And she was there. Right. You have now insulted my wife in front of me, and I've got to show my wife I'm a man. Right. And so there was no going back. Right. I am married, and you're not going to call my wife a cunt without the repercussions. Right. And it came out again. And instead of it being an apology, it was the C word again. So I laid the guy out. And that was another thing that got brought in my chapter. Like, you don't just hate your brother. And I went, we're Proud Boys. I thought you said you don't let someone talk about your family. You don't let, and I'm like, because you guys are cucks. You'd let someone talk about your wife like that and not do shit. I don't care that there's 15 of you. Right. You all should have been beating him up too for insulting me in front of my wife, knowing you don't treat another man like that in front of his wife, because there's roles.
Even if you lost that fight, imagine you got in a fight, driving home with your woman bloodied, and you're all bloodied and fucking...
You feel me? Because that's how it ends in my family. And that's how we go. My wife is... That's why my wife is, because even if I was to... And that's why I have no hesitation. Right. Because I would know that she would have my back, and that's why she gets angry if I don't immediately. And it's like, okay, that's understood. Right. You expect it, and you're going to get it.
And imagine the drive home after you not... You remember Crash? when what's his face and the girl and the cop is like kind of feeling her up and shit, and they get back in the car, that uncomfortable.
That tugs at my heartstrings. That movie, dude.
Can you imagine the uncomfortability? Because I've been in situations like that. I was 21. I was with this 35-year-old at the time. Sounds good.
Stud?
It was not. No, I do have a giant dick. Yes, but but the problem was she had an inheritance and a couple of health problems, and because she didn't need to work really, she didn't want me to work. Now I'm this lazy 21-year-old. I don't want to fucking work either, and she's wanting to not have me work because every time I would go to work, she'd be complaining, "Why aren't you coming home? When you right?" And I didn't know at the time that man shit is necessary. I didn't know it at the time. I was a fucking young 21-year-old who got offered to go live somewhere and fuck this person without having to really go to work, and I'm lazy, right? And so I let her support me, and she was dependent upon me emotionally, and I was dependent upon her financially. It was just a fucking awful little. We hated.
If it goes bad, your finances are screwed. I know how that.
Oh
works.
yeah, no, I slept in my car when we broke up. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she spun off into insanity, and I don't know where the fuck she is. But the reality is this: someone needs to do it. It's not. And okay, now this goes to that other point about the gay stuff. I think that's part of it, of the social construct that is necessary, because that you could say, oh, that's social construct. Social construct is supposed to support nature. The reason why the social construct of dudes be dudes is because that is nature. Someone needs to be a fucking dude, or you know what I mean. Like someone needs to be the masculine. Someone needs to be the feminine. Someone's got to fucking be the one to kiss boo boos, and someone's got to be the one to kill the wolf.
But is that something that is determined by yourself, or is that something that's determined by nature?
I think that's nature.
And so then, in my opinion, if it's not genetic or it's not chromosomal and I can't see
wouldn't that be? I think genetic and nature is the same thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to clarify, like 100%. Like if it's not something that I can see in DNA and in some sort of study.
But you can't see someone needs to kill the wolf in DNA necessarily. Bone structure, muscle mass, yes, there's definitely a difference between female chromosomes and male chromosomes. But there isn't necessarily anything that necessarily spells out this body's job is to kill wolves. You know what I mean? Or this body's job is to kill.
There is. The ladies' hips move when they have babies. A
True.
man can't do that.
No.
You don't have a uterus. You don't have a uterus.
No.
We don't have periods. So
Right.
there are things that there are not going to be able to do.
It feels...
you were given that okay, the lottery sucks. You lost. You've got to suck it up once a month. You got to suck it up. I mean, it just sucks. You got to have the, you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. It's just how it is.
used to say that. Don't get mad at me because God gave you that shit. That's not my fucking fault. I don't mind to check on her fucking period though, by the way, just to make it dirty because this is my podcast and we can cut it out later.
We love
you don't
women,
mind.
We love nature. So
I don't mind fucking on the period. I don't give a fuck. Just put a towel down. You know what I mean? I'm not scared. Fuck off. But anyway.
Shower for sure. Hit the shower. We're
Dude,
good.
have you ever... All right. Never mind.
He's like a podcast friendly.
Now, do you... I got to piss. Do you want to...
You can pause it real fast?
Yeah, all right.
Sure.
We can keep going in a minute. Here we go.
It's even good cold.
It really is. All right. Welcome to the second half of whatever the fuck we're doing.
That's right.
So I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. But first one was you do live videos, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of cross pollination between your fans and mine. But I was thinking that the videos that I've seen, especially there was I don't know if it was the most recent, but it was only like two weeks ago, of you at the Sacramento. There was a hearing about was it immigration a few weeks ago, or
forced vaccinations. Are you talking about the Methodist church I was thrown out of? That was April of last year.
The one where you were asking questions and they were like, no, we have to stop, and then someone hit
Correct.
you.
Right? You dragged me out of the Methodist church. Okay. Yeah, that was April 6th. That was funny. That was actually my wife and I's anniversary, and my wife gave me a pass. I was like, hey, there's an event going on in Loomis. It's this ICE event. There's supposed to be a question and answer, and there's supposed to be an ICE officer on stage, right? Like
Okay.
on the panel. So I'm like, oh, okay, it'll be like an informative event. No, it was pandering. I got in there.
Anti-immigration, and they had right.
It was
okay.
no, it was pro-immigration.
I mean, that's what.
I was thinking it was anti-immigration. I was thinking it was like, how we can do things legally or whatever. But it was, they were there raising money for people. They're there trying to like
refugee cities. How did they treat the ICE officer?
Well, it was a Department of Homeland Security office, so I guess there's like a branch. So ICE is a branch off of the Department of Homeland Security. So there was a woman there from the Department of Homeland Security, and she was the financial department. And she was basically telling them how to help illegal aliens get more money. Okay. Like, you guys need to do this, this, and this so that my department can give us more money to give them. And she was basically like doing what you shouldn't be doing if you're supposed to be non-biased. You're not supposed to be having a side, but she was clearly on her day off.
Right.
There, it's like, you're not allowed to do that. You can't be a government official and teach people in the country how to teach non-citizens how to violate our rules and get financial gains.
Right.
And she was literally there on a panel, and I sat there for over an hour and a half, maybe about 2 hours. Didn't do anything. I sat there quietly, respectfully. That's why I was able to sit there and record. And I stood up at the end and asked, what is the limit? When are we going to stop allowing the flow? Because we have a 1 million man quota where we allow 1 million people a year to come into our country. That's what we bring in every year. Legally. Half from...
I was watching a video. I think it's 45 or 50% more than any other... in the world. Yeah. Right.
And we take 50% from people's family here. So, like, you have to know somebody, and then 50% from elsewhere. Okay. So we divide half by people, so it's like chain migration. You got to know people, which is okay.
Yeah.
But the problem was, I was like, well, what about all the illegals?
Right. We
had 150,000 people come in the month of March, and they were all released. I mean, they say maybe a couple hundred were turned back or whatever. A couple hundred, though, out of 150,000 people.
Right.
So I go, what's up with the quota if it's at 1 million and we bring in 2 million illegals this year? Are we going to, like, stop the quota next year or not bring in it? And before I even got that question out, I was assaulted. I had my camera knocked out of my hand. And
by who?
By a dude, just some random dude.
So it wasn't security necessarily.
No, it had no security. This was just a guy who was, again, an SJW, suffering from severe Trump derangement syndrome, white guilt. Right. He was a white older man, like a Navy veteran, retired FBI agent, and it was like, whoa, dude, what the hell are you doing? Violating everything that he had ever stood for. Right. And that's what just blew me away when he was like talking to the cops afterwards. Because I had him, citizens arrested, the people there, I had one arrested, and this guy's like talking about all of his career, how he's an FBI agent. I'm like thinking, you violated every right I had of my freedom of speech. You violated everything, and you were a federal employee. Right. Like, just thinking about the people that they had there,
right?
And the fact that they put their hands on me and then they're calling me a Nazi as they're dragging me out of a church, it's just crazy.
So when did you start? Because obviously you joined the Proud Boys. Were you always the guy? Was it, how quick did you realize I'm not afraid of controversy and I'm down to jump into the fight?
My life's always been full of controversy, so it didn't matter. That was never an issue. But when I became politically driven was when the vaccinations occurred. When I found out about like them telling us we can't put our kids in school without being vaccinated, and I was kind of like, what are you talking about? I'm not going to be told what to do. I was actually pro-vaccine, but when they were like, you're going to do this, and I'm like, if it's good, you wouldn't have to force it. It kind of made me think, like, no one's ever said no to good stuff.
Right. Similar to when Jordan Peterson was talking about the stuff up in Canada that kind of set off his career, was the idea of, yeah, I'm down with calling somebody their preferred name, but you can't legislate language. You can't legislate, it's not okay to tell other people what it's not about the trans issue at all. It's about the language and the forcing of words. I've
had that argument with gays and in the LGBT community semantically. I am a free speech advocate. You're not going to tell me what I have to call somebody. Right. I will respectfully refer to somebody as, usually if I know you, I'll give you that decency because I'm not an asshole, right? I think that there's a level of decency that you'll give someone out of respect. But if I don't know you and you're disrespecting me or whatever, I mean, and sometimes if you're angry and you refer to someone on accident as like, bro, and they get all angry, it's not like I'm misgendering people to make people mad, but I should not have to be referred to as a cisgender now. Because you want to feel like you can label me as not normal, or there is no normal.
Control speech.
We're all a part of the spectrum now, and you're this, and I don't like that.
So the vaccine stuff kind of set you off. And where was your first? Kind of jumping into the fray stuff? Was it after joining Proud Boys?
No, it was actually before. I went to this Muslim rally. It was a pro-Sharia. I saw it on the internet on Facebook, and it was a pro-Sharia rally in Roseville, basically like promoting Sharia. And I was like, what? I just started learning about it in college a few years earlier. I knew it, and I'm like,
Sharia's no motherfucking good.
No,
dude,
and it's a part of the Wahhabism, right? So Sharia is the law. Sharia is the courts. We use the judicial system. They use Sharia. It's the same idea, though. And I'm like, no. So I drove out to Roseville, and I think I was like, just going to the mall or something simple. And there's 3 corners of 4 with just massive people on them. And I'm like, what's going on? Which one's the pro-Sharia side, right? I just want to see. So I looked, and there was only one side that didn't have American flags. And they weren't. And so I'm like, okay, they're obviously anti-American, probably pro-Sharia. And I get over there, and within 7 minutes, bro, I will give you the film. I have it. It was my first live. I was arrested. 7 minutes. Never even used a word of vulgarity. Didn't do anything.
No
it was
punches.
Simply because I didn't even get into a yelling match with anybody. The Roseville Police Department said I was not allowed to question people. I was not allowed to be on that corner. And I went, you can't tell me what corner I can be on.
Right.
And it was my first I know my rights.
Right.
And the cop's like, I'm going to arrest you for disorderly conduct right now. And I went,
that is a loophole. They can get you on obstruction or disorderly anytime they want.
And so it was PC 415B. And I laughed because they took me to jail and they fingerprinted me, and I jogged back to the rally from downtown Roseville, ran all the way back just to see if they were there. Right.
That's such a Sacramento thing to do, I got to tell you.
Right. See, but I went to court a month later, and there was no record of my arrest.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? You know what I'm saying? And then it was like, I see these Black Lives Matters people protesting, and I started pulling out my phone, and then I started seeing people pulling up with cars, and they would unload a trunk load of signs. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Who pulls up with 80 signs or in the back of their truck that all have different messages on them? Right. And I started going, and I'm reading the messages going, this is all propaganda.
Right.
This is not. And so I started I'd be driving around, and I started realizing, this shit's everywhere.
Right.
These people are, and I'm like, no. There's someone that's going to go and question you, and I'm going to make you answer my questions, and I'm going to make you be held accountable for your stupid actions. If you're on the corner holding a sign that says, abortion is a woman's right, I want you to explain yourself, and I'm going to do it with a camera because I want to have you on camera so you can sound stupid when you're trying to defend yourself. You know what I mean?
Now, was it also was a piece of you wanting to create this brand that you had, this Prudent Patriot?
I had no idea that I was going to even be liked by anybody. I kind of started off recording videos for myself, and I'd bring them home and show them to my friends and be like,
look at this dumb motherfucker.
Look at what I did today, dude. I'm like, I went and asked this moron about this, and he couldn't handle the fact that I was asking questions, and people were like, why don't you put that on YouTube or Facebook? And I was like, what? And so then I was like, all right. And then a couple hundred people watched one day, and I was like, a couple hundred people? Who would watch me do that? And then I did another one, and I got a couple hundred more. And then I did a Tom Steyer event where
What's that?
Tom Steyer was the guy who is the impeach Trump. He's the impeach movement thing where it's okay, so he's running a whole propaganda thing. He spent $40 million to impeach Trump. He's running for president, whatever. Well, last year I went to his event, and I went undercover, and I stood up and pulled on my Trump hat at the end of the event, and I just started calling him a Marxist and a commie and just all kinds of, you know what I mean?
Fun stuff.
But I asked him a question, and I got 50,000 views.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, like people enjoy this confrontational style.
Sure.
And so I just started to run with it because it's my style. It's how I work. And obviously it's ruined a lot of my life because it's gotten me doxxed. It's gotten my, things mixed up because the left doesn't like it. But I mean, look at that that congressman over in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia. He just did that to that Planned Parenthood, yelling at those little girls that were praying in front of Planned Parenthood. He was screaming and saying he'll pay him $100 to dox these little kids and their mother. And you're like, so you guys can do this kind of like, and it's okay for you. But when I go out and get in people's faces, it's wrong. They want to shut us off the internet. They want to ban us and say it's bullying.
Oh yeah, no. Jared and I talked about it a lot. The fact that Kathy Griffin, who was calling for those high schoolers, the MAGA hat kid, Covington. She literally on Twitter was like, "I want fucking addresses and names," and she's not even like a reprimand from Twitter, right?
No, someone punched him in the face. She said there was like that face looks so punchable.
No, that was somebody else. She actually was. I think it's worse that she was like, I want addresses, I want names.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So, but nothing happened to her. But Gavin McInnes and all these other people who are not calling for people's addresses and fucking names, and they get banned. You know what I mean? Like, what's more dangerous? You know what I mean? Like,
scary times right now, Pete. Yeah, scary.
So. The other thing is as far as your you were talking about the abortion thing, and there's a lot in the news right now about things in Georgia and Alabama.
The heartbeat bills.
Yeah. Now, I posted this last week. I have this thing. Sometimes I do it. I don't do it every week. I'm a busy motherfucker. All right, fuck off. But I do a controversial opinion Wednesday on my Instagram, and I posted about it. I was like, listen, I have never been, I always thought my whole life, just whatever I was told as far as abortion goes, well, yeah, I guess I'm pro-choice, whatever. It never really occurred to me. And when questions or when I watched videos and stuff, I just assumed everyone who was against abortion was just wanting to control women's bodies. And then I posted about it last week, how I'm like, no, I think I'm kind of mostly pro-life now, and this is a weird feeling that I have, you know what I mean? Like, and I know that people are like immediately going to want to put me in a box or unfollow, do what you got to do, but like I just I know that it's a difficult thing, and it's but don't tell me when you're really wanting to widen the door so far for abortion that you say that the thing growing inside of that person is not a person. That bothers me. You know what I mean? If you want to, we'll get to the idea of killing this baby, but at least call it a fucking baby, because it is. You know what I mean?
A clump of cells or whatever they call it.
And when I posted, the only two people who wanted to talk about it online were two women who shared their stories about getting abortions. And they talked about how it was a really difficult thing, and they didn't come at me in an attacking way. And I love both of these women; they're wonderful women. But they also, when I clarified and said, "Listen, I'm not, and I'm pretty good at, like, I tweaked and reworded and tweaked and reworded and waited with this post before I posted it, because I know my ass, and I know that I can fucking post some off the wall shit, but something this contentious, let me be careful about it." And so I was careful about it, and I talked about how, listen, I'm not saying that I know all about it, but number one, call it what the fuck it is. It is a child.
Right.
And number two, don't tell me that because I have a dick that I cannot have an opinion about it. Don't tell me that. You know what I mean? Don't tell me I can't be a part of the conversation just because I have a dick.
Yeah.
Now, both of those women who were like, this is a really touchy subject, and like we're like kind of not fighting, but like, posting about it, agreed with me on both of those angles. So that teaches me something. That teaches me both of those women who were like, I've actually fucking had abortions, and women should be allowed to have abortions. But yeah, it's a baby. So that's number one. And number two, yeah, I've had abortions, and women should be allowed to have abortions. But yeah, I think you're allowed to have the conversation. So that's coming from two fucking women, you know what I mean, who understand that as contentious and weird as this is, and as defensive as they want to be, like, let me have fucking abortion. Number one, you're allowed to have an opinion, and number two, yeah, okay, it is a baby, and of course it is. Otherwise, why would it be such a fucking? And it really is a horrible experience for these women to go through often. You know what I mean? Not just physically, but emotionally. You know what I mean? For fucking months sometimes, these women tell these stories about like being in a fucking depression and like just not wanting to leave their house, or just like feeling like this thing was pulled out of you, even if they didn't want it, or because both of these women talked about how one was because of a medical procedure, like it was dangerous to go forward with this, and also whether it's by choice because you don't feel like it would be viable, or your life isn't in the right spot, or whether it be medical, it's still a difficult, horrible experience to go through. And so why would it be a difficult, horrible experience unless it was actually a kid?
Right. I think that that's a very good statement. It's kind of a question as well, but I think you're right on, because once I had my kid and I realized what was going on, and when I went through the whole pregnancy with my wife, and you feel the kicking and like how it responds to your voice. Like I get home from work and my wife would be like, "Oh, he's responding to your voice. He knows daddy's home." Or your daughter, like they know the difference, dude. And we're talking like literally something that I was unaware of as a human being. Like you grow up and you see like I had a sister that had kids and I got nephews or whatever, but it's not the same when you're there laying in bed and your kid is flipping around in the stomach, kicking, and you realize that someone chooses at 8 months that they no longer want this kid because of financial reasons.
Right.
And they think they have the right. Dude, I've seen babies that are 4 months younger that are born premature that are saved, and you're throwing it out the window. And that's where I think that these women are completely unaware, and they're complicit in the fact that what they're doing is they're just contributing to a greater evil, which is they're just selling these organs. And they've got these women convinced via like hypnosis that they're really empowering them. And this is really an evil that these women have in them, and they're not even aware that they're possessed by some sort of evil, because spiritually, if you're okay, you're going to be like, well, you know what? I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to handle. Like women used to be like, even rape victims a lot of the time would be like, you know what? Like some, I'm not saying all, like depends on how violent or like who it was or whatever, incestual. Like I don't agree with incest. I don't agree with rape. I don't agree with those. So I feel it's a woman's right to choose then. If you go out and have a one night stand and you get pregnant, you chose. And that's where these women don't understand what I'm getting at. And I'm like, you invited him home. You knew when you didn't put on a rubber, or you put on a rubber, or you were drunk and decided not to put on a rubber,
or weren't using protection.
That is your bad, and that was your right. And the fact that you're in America and you were able to have consensual sex with somebody and you got pregnant, you made the choice. You consensually made a choice with that other human being that you'll roll the dice, and that's where it comes down to selfishness. Is it about a nut? Is that all you want? I mean, because that's not what it's about. I mean, it feels that good to entice you to breed. Right. That's what it's there for. It's like breed, but it's not if you don't have control. And that's why it's so deep, dude. It's like, you know what I mean?
And it is a complicated issue. And on one hand, I think that I really do feel like that women should have a choice up to a certain point. Like apparently, like in Georgia, or I think it's the Georgia one, where it's 6 weeks.
Right.
A lot of times, women don't even know that they're fucking pregnant.
I have a
at
problem
6
with
weeks.
that. That's like heartbeat. I understand, and that comes down to, again, accountability. How many women are on their body? How many people are, like, my wife would tell you if she's late, she's on like this digital birth control. We don't even have to use protection, dude. We've had 2 kids in 15 years because she follows a digital natural. She knows her ovulation cycle, and you calendar it and you kind of follow it.
And there are so one of the women on that Instagram post talked about how she had a abortion because of a malfunction with her IUD. She had an IUD, but then I'm getting the story wrong. But
I know what you're saying. So you got pregnant even though you were preparing not to have a kid.
Correct.
So you still know there's a risk. All I'm getting at. It doesn't say 100%. It says 99.8%, and you rolled the dice.
And not just that. Because on one hand, I think, especially for rape and incest, there should be an exception. At
Right.
the same time, I do understand, Ben Shapiro talks a lot about it, but I do understand that why would you match one evil with another evil? That if it is a child, because we all once we're all on that same footing, it becomes a lot harder to just throw it out.
I think rape, though, again, it's like I'm not okay with a woman that comes in 8 months pregnant claiming rape. Right. You should have come in. I want to see a police report filed within the first couple days. Right. I want to see, but then they're like, oh, well, you can't expect a woman to. And this is where it's like this. Okay, so is there any accountability? Do we get to like ever have a happy medium ever? Because you're like, okay, well, you can't expect a woman to come out after being assaulted because she's
not just that, but that same argument would that the reason why a leftist might err on that side is because they don't actually believe that women are capable of fucked up evil too. Right. That women are capable of lying. I have had multiple women on this show who know multiple women who have lied about being raped. Who have lied about being raped.
I know what you're saying. I do. It's on the news. It's on the news. People making false claims, wrong dates, wrong times, claiming they were here and clear as day it was recorded and the camera was there and they weren't there. They were somewhere else out of the country. Right. And for me, the fact that occurs and that there's that chance, you can't just. I mean, I don't know, dude. It's a really difficult question. I think it comes down to, again, I think those situations, I will give the woman the benefit of the doubt of that's her choice. Right. That is your choice if you were raped to decide. Right. Of carrying something that that's not like, oh, I went and had sex. That's not like my IUD didn't work. That's like someone raped you. Right. And I personally will straight up say I would have a hard time raising a child that I know was put in my life via rape. And I'm just going to say it might cause me a lifetime of suffering more than I'm already. Or other people go, it could heal you. This child could heal you. Because I know children are absolutely amazing, right? So it's like but that comes down to me not being spiritual. Maybe that's what I lack, which is why I always grow. I'm not stupid enough to say, because I've become more spiritual the more I'm involved in this movement. Because everyone keeps going, hey, dude, God brought you to me. I don't know who you are. You believe in God? And I'm like, no. And they're like, okay, buddy, because God brought you to us. You're in the Patriot movement for a reason. And I'm like,
I genuinely, I can't stand that. I was listening to Jim and Sam this morning, and morality is not tied. I mean, this is not 1940 anymore. Morality is not necessarily tied into religion. The reason why I morally am against abortion is because it's a fucking baby.
That's it.
I'm not saying I'm against the baby because God ordained. Yes. I do believe in a higher power or whatever. Like, and it shifts, and it doesn't need to be fucking. It doesn't need me for the very sure. But at the very least, it's not a morality standpoint of God said to. No, it's a fucking living thing. You know, the wheels are already in motion. That is a baby.
I don't hunt
call
at
it
all.
What it is.
I don't hunt. I don't fish because I don't like having to kill stuff. And for me, it's the same. Like, I didn't have unprotected sex growing up because I knew that there was a chance, and that's what's gone. Right. People don't care because they know they've got abortion, and it's not just abortion. People don't realize that is a life, and it's this disconnect, and that's why you won't see when you go to Planned Parenthood them letting you hear the heartbeat. They won't let you see the sonogram and hear the heartbeat. When we went and saw my wife's OBGYN, first thing they do, and you're like, dude, it's this like oxytocin release, bro. Like, your body just like I can't explain it, like, unless you've had children. I've got 2, and it was magical. And they don't do that for a reason, because they'll know you'll want your child.
Did you see Unplanned? The movie that was. Did you hear about it?
Oh yeah.
It's a little Lifetime movie-ish, but they had a small budget. It's okay.
It's still a very difficult movie to portray too.
It's a heavy ass motherfucking movie, because they literally show. So, like, as an example, if you either watch Unplanned because it's a good movie, or there's this video of, and you know what, maybe I'll tease it on my Instagram, but there's this video of this guy, this doctor, talking about why he stopped performing abortions
in Congress. The guy was sitting there with the 5 minutes. Oh yeah,
shit!
I posted that video.
Oh my god!
The scalpel with how it grabs and tears.
Oh
yeah,
god!
Yeah.
At this point, yeah, and he talks about it very matter of fact. At this point, you will see a white liquid discharge from the woman's vagina. That means that you've got the brain.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. You're like, that's the spinal fluid
Jesus
releasing.
Christ.
And you're like, and that's where when you start realizing that they make sure they get every piece out, and then you start here, and you're like, could you imagine the fighting too? Because the baby's not like, I'm telling you right now, being a parent, you walk in and you make noise, and the baby wakes up from its nap. It's a baby. At a certain point, it could literally be out and living.
Right.
It's just in your body getting bigger.
Right.
So like, I think it would have to be like before 16 weeks. I think like logically.
You think like first trimester?
Yeah, because I think that there are people, maybe you're big or you're heavy or you're not aware, you miss a period or two. We'll give you that. I think that there's a chance where you're athletic, you haven't had your period. There's women that vary their periods. Like I'm not stupid enough to be like, okay, well, no abortions for anybody ever. I am against that, like Alabama law. Like I saw the Alabama where I'm like, they're like none, cut and dry, none.
Right.
Well, there's gonna be a mass exodus of, but what this is a response to killing babies after they're born at 9 months old. When you heard that Virginia governor, we'll make the babies comfortable. We'll just give
both
them.
extremes are not right. And what I hate about that Alabama law more than anything is that it does strengthen it strengthens the pro-choice all the way up to 9 months. It strengthens that idea because now all these people online, all these stars or whatever are like, keep your fucking hands, like, did we need to go that far? Like, did you need to? They not only said 6 weeks, they said that they're going to try to, and it's not push through, but that they will try to lock up abortion doctors with 99 years in prison.
You. Yeah, I mean, and that's a scare tactic. And what it is it's a response because they're going to now challenge Roe v. Wade. And what they're doing is, and this is simply because the left has swung the pendulum so far to the left, the conservatives have never fought back. We've allowed them to trample us, right? We've just sat back cordially, shit and grin, and just kind of taken it. Well, now I think we're to the point where we're like, you know what? It's time to start taking some stuff back. And Roe v. Wade is like their cornerstone, dude. Like that's their.
And it's not about control.
No,
seriously, please listen to us.
It's
not
about
about
fighting.
Controlling your body. I don't give a shit if you eat grain, bitch. I don't give a fuck if you fuck or you don't fuck. Do what you got to do, but don't kill a baby. Yeah. That's all I give a fuck about. Yeah. It's not your body. It's a separate body that happens to be inside of your fucking apartment building. You know what I mean? That's it. I care about the fucking baby. And I feel like first trimester makes sense to me, too.
That's why they're calling it a cancer now. Have you seen that new study done by the LA, that school like UCLA? They're trying to compare a fetus to a cancer because of the way it attaches to you and it leaches nutrients and all this. They're presenting this now to this group of kids that it is the equivalent to cancer. A baby. And it's like, I used to joke with my wife, it's like a cancer. And I used to joke because what do? A cancer sucks off you. But a cancer doesn't become a loving being and come back and love you and change your diaper when you're 60, right? It puts you out before you're 60. And it's like the difference is they're raising these kids to fear it. AOC's telling people, the world's going to end in 12 years. Don't even have kids. Why? Is that what you think the third worlders are doing? Because the third worlders are having 6 kids, 8 kids, 15 kids. One of them's going to succeed. And what's going to happen is they're going to all do this, and they're going to come up here, and in 300 years, they're going to be where we were. They're going to be like, having 2 kids because they're busy at work. Or they probably won't be breeding anymore. We're getting to the point where I think the left wants to control who allows who, and this is where the eugenics is coming in. And you're seeing the real Nazism of the left that killing babies based on whatever they choose. It's not quite fitting my lifestyle choice. That's not like, it's got Down syndrome. It's got this. I can't financially afford it, man. Like, I want to go to college. I want to be a Hollywood star. And you're like, then why were you having sex?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and then we'll wrap up, but I was thinking about this. Let's just say recently I had a thought. I don't think it was a pregnancy scare, but I had this thought like, I felt like you ever, this is going to get dirty real quick, but whatever. you ever feel like you nut, but you didn't? Like, you know, like there's like a half nut where like you're not actually coming, but you're like there's like spasms in your dick. You're like, this is, but I know I'm not at the orgasm point, but I'm almost like a pre. You know what I mean? It's a complicated thing. And I didn't pull out because I'm like, well, I'm not. This is. Wait, did some come out? Did some? You know, I started just thinking, and I'm like thinking, and we finished. You know, I left, and I was like. And I'm like, man, I hope she gets her period because she said she was going to get it in a few days. And I'm like, man.
Well, see, that's knowing.
And
That's knowing.
I thought to myself, like, I mean, I've got not only the podcast and the album and I want to move. I want to move to New York. But could I, if I had a say in it, could I say get an abortion? And I had to sit in my belly and just know, like, I know it's easy to fucking think about it. It's easy because I'm not even faced with the decision now. I'm just thinking about it. And I'm getting more used to the idea that I would have to say, like, no. You know, and I would have to...
Career ender.
Change my ideas of what my focus would be.
That's what happened to me. Like, when I had my first kid, and I was, like, watching my friends around me that are getting divorces, and you're seeing like the affairs, you're seeing it, and a lot of it centers around the children, right? Because you're always giving so much energy to the kids and not focusing on each other. I think if you take the time to focus on one another a little bit, like, you have to give each other the time and recognize each other. My wife and I probably don't do it as much as we could, but we make sure to take time every day to like love on each other and acknowledge each other and do those things that you just need to do, you know what I mean, and kind of strengthen your relationship. But again, in terms of like the decision, I'm the same way. Once I decided I was going to have kids, my life no longer was about me. It was now about the child and about making everything as good as I can for that child's life and preparing. And if that meant sucking it up, not buying new clothes, making sure you got diapers, I did that. And like, now that I know, that's really what made me recognize. And that's why it's one of those things where you could go to the transgender issue. How are we going to allow someone to tell a 5-year-old kid they should remove their testicles when I didn't know if I wanted to have kids until I was 30? So this is that thing where like, we grow, dude, our whole life. And there's a lot of things that I didn't know I was, like marriage and kids and all kinds of things. So like, we really need to reflect before we allow things to be put on our kids and our culture, you know?
Right on. Thank you so much for
Thank you, bud. I appreciate it
having
very
me,
much,
dude. Came all the way up to Sacramento. See what I do for you kids? See how fucking amazing I am? Although I am also going to visit with a girl. Anyway.
I like it. Sorry if I look stiff, guys. I tried holding the microphone the whole time. I'm like, I'm new to this, so did what I could.
No, it's fine. Anyway, you can support this. Actually, you go first. Where can people find your stuff?
I have a YouTube page, a Facebook, an Instagram, a Patreon. It's all at The Prudent Patriot. It's ThePrudent Patriot. All one word, and you can find me at any of those if you'd like to watch my videos.
Awesome. And you can support this podcast at patreon.com/conservatish. Find me on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano. Subscribe, like this video, share this video, and there's a new episode every Monday and Thursday. And I love you all very much. I'll be performing every Saturday starting May 25th. Every Saturday in between now and when I leave for New York at Scopo Divino in San Francisco between 7 and 10 p.m. So if you want to go to a wine bar in San Francisco and listen to my fucking crazy ass, you're welcome in advance. Yeah, thank you very much again.
Thank you again. I
for coming on,
appreciate you.
Jeff. Bye, everybody.